can Florida State pull off the impossible? How can they bounce back from the season from hell in 2024 and win the ACC championship again? Well, if it's going to happen, the Gus Malzahn hiring at offensive coordinator has to work out. And if it does, he's going to be able to elevate the play of Tommy Castellanos, who was pretty good at Boston College. He had 18 touchdowns. He didn't really have a lot of turnovers, and I never really quite understood the decision by Bill O'Brien to bench him when he was playing some pretty good football. I do know at times he tended to be a little bit streaky, but for the most part, he was pretty solid, and he was one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC when he was at BC, and he has a lot of similarities to Kyler Murray. I call him Family Dollar Kyler Murray because he isn't the kind of athlete that he is. He doesn't have the arm strength that Kyler has, but he's a few notches off. He is a really good scrambler. And with Gus Malzahn running the kind of scheme that he does with a lot of design quarterback runs and read options, RPOs, it's going to be able to best utilize the strengths of Tommy Castellanos' game. And let's not forget that every running back that you plug into this Gus Malzahn offense seems to get a plus 20 overall boost to their initial overall. Because for the last 3 years that Gus Malzahn was at UCF, he produced top 10 rushing attacks. And when he was at Auburn, the ground game was always really good. And when Gus Malzahn has had a similar personnel to what he has to work with at Florida State with Wardell Williams, who should have a breakout season, really good power back with really good explosiveness as well, and Tommy Castellanos with what he can do with his legs, it reminds me a lot of when Gus Malzahn went to the national championship when he had Trey Mason and Nick Marshall in the backfield. And if the ground game is really good for Florida State, then they're going to be able to help their defense out by not having them on the field for that many plays as what they had last year. They're going to be better at controlling the clock and being able to impose their will up front. And if Florida State is going to be able to have a dominant rushing attack, they're going to need these portal additions on the offensive line to hit the offensive line. Not only could they open up holes in the ground game, but they couldn't even pass protect really efficiently neither. This year, though, Gus Malzahn brings in a bunch of offensive linemen from the portal that have multiple years of experience. So you're not really banking on a bunch of unproven guys who are living off potential. You're banking on guys that have proven to be serviceable starters at their previous spots. And if their new offensive line coach, Herb Hand, ends up being able to get the most out of this group and he can get them to gel early, that's going to open up everything for this offense because everything starts on the line of scrimmage. No matter how good you are at receiver, the game is won and lost on the line of scrimmage. And if this offensive line can improve under Herb Hand, then the ground game is going to be really good. The passing attack is going to be really good because Florida State got two really good receivers out of the transfer portal. You got Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White, and although these guys don't have a ton of production, at least they're more proven than the guys you had catching passes for you last year. Squirrel White is really fast. He's going to be a really good deep threat in this offense. And Deuce Robinson, I don't know if you guys remember the guy who had that one-handed catch against LSU and USC season opener last season, but he was the guy who made that catch and it went viral. It was posted everywhere. So he is going to be similar to what Johnny Wilson was. He's like 6'5", 6'6", has really good length, and he has the ability to come down with those contested catches, and he can make all kinds of acrobatic plays as well. So you're really good at receiver. You're really good at running back, and you should get quality quarterback out of Tommy Castellanos. So the offensive line is really going to be the unit that makes or breaks Gus Malzahn and the rest of this Florida State offense. But if this offensive line with the portal additions that they made end up panning out, then they should be not just incredibly improved on the offense side of the ball, but they should have one of the better offenses in the ACC with how good that ground game should be. Now, defensively, Florida State is going to be really good on this side of football. They should have one of the best defenses in the ACC this year due to the hiring of defensive coordinator Tony White, who has produced top 25 defenses everywhere that he's called plays at. Florida State on the defensive line, I still think that they're lacking in that area, but they got a really good young secondary. They had a bunch of young guys who stepped up when their names were called, such as KJ Kirkland, who was really productive in his 9 starts as a redshirt freshman. You also have Shaheem Brown, who led the team in tackles. They are going to be bringing in 3 new starting cornerbacks. Charles Lester III is a breakout candidate that I have circled because he was the second best player from Florida State's 2024 recruiting class. He was the 84th ranked player out of high school that year by 247. Really good athlete, has pretty good size as well. So if he ends up being able to be properly developed in this Tony White scheme, then I feel him, along with the rest of the new cornerbacks they're going to be throwing out there, should be really good. I still don't know how Florida State's going to look from the linebacker and pass rush standpoint, but I don't think that they'll be too bad in that area due to the impact of this Tony White hiring. So if all of these things work for Florida State, they can find themselves in the ACC championship because Mike Norvell won this conference before, mainly assembling this team through the portal. So if you can do it once, you can do it again. The downside with the portal is that you can't use it to completely overcompensate for your inability to develop the guys that you recruit. And Mike Norvell, I feel at the midway point of last season, he understood that. And that's why you started to see some of the younger guys on this team get more action. And I feel they're going to be a lot better with the guys that they end up getting out of high school when it comes to developing them, because you can't recruit well if the guys that you're recruiting, you're just throwing checks out at them, but they don't have faith that you can develop them for the next level. So Mike Norvell, I really feel this offseason, he's put a lot of emphasis on making sure that the guys they recruited have gotten the necessary development. And these are the guys that they primarily are going to be leaning on this side of the ball this year. And with Tony White taking over as the defensive coordinator with this 3-3-5, I think that is better suited for the ACC than what it is for the Big Ten, just with there being different styles of play between both conferences. So if all of this goes right for Florida State and you get really good quarterback play out of Tommy Castellanos, you're able to have elite rushing attack with Gus Malzahn, that's the OC, the offensive line and wide receiver additions hit, and the Tony White hire is as good as what it should be, you can be right back in the ACC championship again. You probably could end up making it as a 2-loss team because, look, although Miami has a talent advantage over you, with Mario Cristobal losing games to teams he's not supposed to lose to, you could beat Miami this year. And also, you just can't predict the outcome of a rivalry due to talent, because rivalry games are different from any other game that you play because it just has a different feel and a different aura to it. And I do feel that there are a few games that Florida State has in their schedule that they should be able to win that they were unable to win last year. I mean, if you would have told me that Florida State was going to lose to some of the teams that they did last year, I would have never believed it. But this year, I feel that if all of these factors play out and Mike Norvell's favor, they can find themselves right back in the ACC. It's not like this is the Big Ten or the SEC. This conference is wide open. You will be facing Clemson, and maybe you get a little bit lucky against Clemson. You catch them on the off game, and you end up taking advantage of that, and you can end up winning this thing. But other than Clemson, there really is no other team in this conference that you can look at and say, yeah, they're locked to win it, because nobody really recruits at a high level, and it's kind of all over the place when it comes to the ACC. So there definitely is a path to Florida State winning the ACC again if all of these things that I mentioned go right for them.